So in today's video, I'm going to talk about how do you run a backyard or small club practice for your team in armored combat. So what does it mean to run a backyard practice? And why am I talking about this today? So I'm talking about it because I got to go down last weekend to Hartford, Connecticut, to the Hartford Vanguard practice. They had a Sunday day practice for new fighters, a couple experience, some people that I knew, a couple people I knew showed up, which was awesome. Met a whole bunch of new people, run by Gary Murder Gnome, who has been fighting for a long time and running his own team out of Connecticut. And what it's like to have to build a practice when you don't have a facility that's set aside for it and it's not your business, right? So I wear the Knights Hall t-shirt. Knights Hall is where I train. I'm very, very lucky to have the Knights Hall near me. I can drive to it and I go there weekly, right? So I went yesterday for Monday classes, and I went to a striking class, and I went to a Tabata class, and I could have stayed for a grappling class, and there's an additional principal application of grappling class all in one day, and that's every week, right? So, then Wednesday has its set classes, and Friday has its set classes, the Sunday morning class. There's a regimented structure to it that allows me to train at a level that a lot of people can't in this sport. I'm lucky to have that near me, and I'll talk about that a lot. It's part of why I got into the sport, is because I knew I could just go train there. If you're in Texas, down by Warlord Academy, that's fantastic. If you're in Nashville's got a school that seems to be growing. Mickey seems to be doing a great job down there. I haven't been able to visit it, but every video I see seems awesome. So with that, if you're in that area, that's awesome. You go to the schools. But if you're not, like most of the country, how do you build a team? So I got to participate in Gary's practice. I got to coach a little, which is fun, 'cause I like teaching. And I got to see new people come in and made me think a lot about how do you run a practice. Now, I want to say I think Gary did a great job. He had basically a 4.5 hour chunk of time that we had to put a lot of information into, because you're not going to get together every week for some of these teams. It's just not feasible. Gary had it in his backyard. He's got his own little list. I may throw up a picture here if I can of just what it looked like, and where we were training in soft kit. So we do that, we go to the practice, right? So I go down there and thinking about how do you run this? And I do have a little bit of experience because I run a couple practices in my own backyard. You can see me train out here. I have an area. I have a half a rail list built up. I have Pel work, I have weightlifting, and I have had, when I was fighting with the Nightmares, we had Nightmares practice here a couple times. More just to mix it up. We could have gone to the hall, but it was fun to do it outside a different location. We did a barbecue after, right? So it's more of a team event. But you still have to structure it, and you got to spend a lot of time thinking about what you want to get out of it. And that's really what I want to talk about, is if you have limited time, what are you going to spend your time on? Who's coming to that practice, and what do they need? So one of the things you have to stress for the sport at any level, and that's at any team, at any gym, is if you just do the work at the gym, you're probably not going to get great at this, right? There's just not enough time to learn everything in a class. You have to go home and train it and repeat it. And that's what we talk about, Pel work. And you see me put up videos about workouts, because I'm doing a lot of that here at my own backyard gym, right, in my own space. It's even more important if you're only getting together once a month or so, because what you're doing is you're trying to condense all this knowledge in a little bit of time and send everyone on their way. So you really got to have a regimen and a structure. Gary did a great job of laying out the plan. We had on a whiteboard of what we were going to do for that day. And there were really a lot of really new fighters and some real vets there. It was kind of a big mix of people. The vets were there kind of to just hang out and talk and meet with people that I knew, but mostly new fighters. And for them, this was about getting them excited to train. That's what this class was about. I think most people there was their first, second, and a couple might have been third practice ever. So none of the newer people have steel yet. They haven't fought in armor. If they did, they borrowed a kit and did a demo. So Gary's building it here at that time about how do you build the excitement? How do you get people interested in this class, in this sport, by going to his class, right? And let's say he's running it once a month. That's one day a month. You're going to get people together, and you have to put a lot of knowledge in. So what we went through was a pretty good breakdown, and most of it was skill-based and not workout-based. We weren't doing a workout that day because everyone can go home and do that. We talked about what you should be doing for workouts, what kind of workouts, how to be effective, but that wasn't what that day was for. So we did a lot of teaching, sure, but a lot of kind of showing and a lot of helping people understand, what are the different weapons? What makes this sport so cool? So we did, we used soft foam weapons for most of it, but we did, Pell work with, arming sword and or falchion, whatever you're gonna call it, and a shield, right? We walked through the fundamentals and everybody run through that on a Pell over and over and over again to kind of get the basics down. Then we did longsword. Then we did axe as well. We didn't do pole arm, we did axe, right? And on some level, you can't learn anything in a day if you're going to do sword, axe, longsword. You're going to get like very little you're taking tactically away from that because you got to do the same motions over and over again. And what you really want to do is do a full day on just strikes with arming swords. Like that's as a minimum, and probably days and days and days. But what we did there, we said, okay, here's the little tidbits. Take this home, practice some of it, get feedback. We talked a lot about recording yourself. It's very important if you don't have a school, record yourself so you can watch your mistakes. You'll start picking up on things. When we talked a lot about, obviously, arming sword, sword strikes, shield dropping, right? New people drop their shield. So, hey, if you film yourself, you're going to see that. You're going to start recognizing it. So we did that. Then we went through fundamental grappling. And we went through a lot in a shorter time. We walked through, I think, 6 different throws overall between individual and team throws, knowing that you're not going to take it home and be great at any of those. That wasn't the point of this practice. It was to get people excited, interested, and let them feel like what the sport is, right? Then we did some grappling in soft kit. We did some grappling sparring, we'll call it, right? 1-minute rounds or till takedown. And if you won a couple in a row, you'd step out so you could rotate everybody. And after that, we ended the day with full sparring in soft kit. We didn't do any steel that day. Most people didn't bring it, and most people don't have it. So it was all about soft kit, right? And what we were working on was how do you teach people fundamentals and get their basic footwork, their basic balance down, but the excitement for them so they come back. The hope Gary's having, I believe, and what I would be doing if I was running that team, is that those people are going to reach out to me in a week saying, hey, I've been trying this thing and I don't get it. And then you can follow up and have that conversation. So to build a team like that, where you can only meet once a month, once every 2 months, let's just say, right? Because of distance and time and schedules, maybe if you don't have 35 fighters, you're not going to get people to come every week because people's lives are going to get in the way, right? So what you need to do then is establish a structure for that class, walk through a lot of things, get people interested, and have them go home and work and report back to you. Super important. The other thing you want to do is talk about grouping people up into smaller training cadres, right? So if I'm running a team here and I know that my team is an hour and a half away in all different directions, but 2 people are close to each other, you 2 get together every week and spend an hour together, right? Do video calls. Teach over video. You can do it. During quarantine, some of the best sword work I've ever learned from Jay at the Knights Hall was during the sword classes that he was doing online. Every week, I would log in, I would go to a Zoom call, and I'd work on it, and it was so fundamentally basic that I just kept repeating the same strikes. I got so much better at my Pell work from that because I didn't have anything else distracting me. That was it. So there's other ways to do it, but you've got to be intentional with your plan. Now, if Gary had been running that class, or if I was running that class, let's say, for the executioners for whatever reason are coming to my backyard practice. We only get together once a month. I don't know why we do that, but let's say we do. I'm going to train that very differently. We're not going to go through every weapon. We're going to do every grapple. We're going to pick 1 or 2 things and focus on that almost exclusively, right? I'm going to work through the entire time. We're going to work specific grapples and we're going to work it the entire time. Because we're at a level now where most of us are, well, actually all of us, I can say this comfortably, we're all good fighters. We fight everywhere, right? We're all got some experience in our belt. We're going to hone things, and we're going to hone things that we can't hone on our own because we don't get together that often. So when I've done that similar, when we ran the Nightmares practice at my place, a lot of us at that time were preparing for a couple pro fights in different places. So that was a pro fight focused practice. We spent a lot of time basically putting people into the Shark Tank. It's Shark Tank or Bear Pit. I always forget which is which. It's the one where I stay in and I fight everybody, right? So like there's 9 fighters, they all fight me for a minute each. And I'm burning myself out, exhausting myself, working through, and I was conditioning. This was a conditioning practice. Then we'd swap and make someone else do that. And it was grueling. It was that in steel, do 9 minutes of fighting, I think is what we capped out at, with no breaks, right? And by the 9th minute, I'm just surviving. But what I'm doing is building my conditioning, building my mental tenacity, right? And all the stuff I needed for a pro fight. And other people needed as well. So we use that time specifically for that kind of training. We didn't spend any time on Pell work that day. We didn't spend any time on conditioning that day. We didn't spend any time on grappling fundamentals. That was a practice to train in steel. So we focused it. So you really want to tailor your practice to the time you have, how often you can get together, what you need to focus on, right? Are you fundamentally building skills? Are you getting people new and excited in the sport? Are you taking an advanced skill and honing it? And you want to spend that time there. And the important point is follow up. What are you doing after? If you're only getting together once in a while, how are you making sure people commit? Are you talking to people and saying, we've had this practice. By next practice, I want everyone to do XXX, and have you followed up as a captain, as a team leader, whatever you're calling yourself, to make sure that people are doing that work. Because if you get together once a month, you're not going to get great if that's it. Now, it can be fun. If that's all you want. You want a beer league? Awesome. Go at it. But if you want to develop yourself into a sport, into an athlete, into someone who wants to compete at even the middle levels, right? Which most of us are middle level, right? Like we all fight in the US in different areas, and I fight big tournaments, little tournaments, but I want to be competitive in all of them and be strong and feel like I'm doing well. Is making sure you're taking that time and you have a plan, and you follow that plan, and you're effective with your use of time. I'd love your thoughts on it. He's my cat's back here. He's been scratching and meowing the whole time, so if you heard him in the video, I apologize. I'd love your thoughts on it. Like, subscribe, follow, give me your comments. How do you run practice? You run one? What practice have you been to? What's worked? What hasn't worked? And maybe if there's more information, I'll make a follow-up video on this. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.